Welcome to Riverdale, the drinking game, the podcast, the only Riverdale podcast where Betty couldn't make it, so she sent us instead. I'm Joe Storms.
And I'm Meredith Laboon, and we're two high school friends turned 30 something drinking buddies, reliving one of our favorite shows while playing the drinking game we made the first watch through. So, Joe, since last week, you may recall we talked about Snoop Dogg's record because I was drinking 19 Crimes wine.
Yes.
And most of those bottles feature Snoop Dogg or Martha. And we were like, Snoop Dogg doesn't have a criminal record except for maybe drug possession. I can confirm we were correct because he was arrested for cocaine possession, but also he was acquitted in a murder trial in the 90s.
Wow. You have more details than that, or do you just
Nope.
know he was just acquitted?
Yeah, when we were going back, maybe you're not supposed to talk about like editing a podcast when you're recording a podcast, but when we went back and listened to last week's, I was like, I should have Googled if Snoop Dogg had a criminal record. I Googled it, I saw that, and I was like, huh, interesting. And then I didn't click anything.
Wait, so is
So
the
I guess I
answer that
still didn't learn much.
so is the answer that he does have a criminal record, or that he was acquitted? He's technically innocent because he wasn't found guilty.
So he's innocent of the murder, but he's guilty of cocaine possession.
That tracks with everything I know about him. So
Yeah, it made sense to me too. But
yeah.
I just thought you'd want to know my
Now
really
find out
half baked follow up.
now find out if Snoop Lion has been convicted of any crimes. Do you know about Snoop Lion?
No.
That's what he changed his name to when he like produced a reggae album.
When was that?
Not that long ago. It was like less than 10 years ago, I want to say.
Wow. I've really been sleeping on a lot of Snoop Dogg facts.
Yeah, you have apparently. I think that's the end of my Snoop Dogg facts.
Oh, well, what's new with you this week? What's been on your mind?
Yeah, I feel like we don't have good banter this week because we saw each other in person recently. So we got all of the recent life events out of our system.
Yeah,
And
sorry podcast listeners. We hung out without you and now you
yeah,
get like the B-roll of our conversations.
yeah. I was, I did want to know, like, it's spooky season as we speak, as we record right now, although this podcast will probably end up coming out after spooky season. Although, the Eastern State Penitentiary's haunted house goes, I think, well into November, so people check that out. Not a sponsor, but just a fan of their spooky jail.
Yeah,
Um,
they're great.
they're great. But what are you planning this Halloween? I know you're a big proponent of Halloween and the
Yeah.
time of year in general.
Wow, thank you for recognizing the high unholy days by asking me this. Um so as you know, I have a big Halloween party every year. And we always do a theme with a sexiest costume contest. So this year's the theme is Titanic, and I'm very excited to see what people wear. I sent out like an all caps telegram style text to the people who are coming to invite them to the party, but I accidentally typed I misspelled sexiest in the telegram and I wrote sexist instead.
Oh
So
no.
I'm a little afraid that people are going to come in historically accurate sexist costumes.
I
Um
mean, those are just historically accurate costumes, probably, right? Because
yeah,
of
pretty much
the times.
due to the times. Yeah. So I'm excited to see. I'm going to be going as the sexy Titan submersible, but I never win my own sexiest Halloween contest because that's just bad form.
Oh,
What are you doing for Halloween?
I really don't have any plans. My fiance loves scheduling exam dates uh on or around Halloween, so I think we're planning on traveling to where her exam is in North Dakota because it's not in the city where we live, the testing center, the day before so that she's like ready. So we'll probably just be in a hotel room the night before while she nervously studies and I support her uh, and try to reduce her stress. So probably nothing,
I mean, a North
unfortunately.
Dakota testing center sounds pretty spooky to me.
Definitely. I mean, this state, I will say the thing about North Dakota, the most pleasantly surprising thing about North Dakota is I feel like there's a lot of alien themed things here. Like you wouldn't expect it. You would think of like maybe in New Mexico, sure, but there's at least one alien themed restaurant. And then I discovered, oh, there's a alien themed like vape shop in our town. So there's a lot of alien themes things for some reason. I don't fully understand. Maybe I'm in like prime crop circle country out here, but yeah, aliens.
That
That's
makes
kind of spooky.
sense. That
Yeah,
is spooky. Maybe you should go
spooky
alien
adjacent.
hunting for Halloween.
Maybe.
Yeah, or I really want you to go to the alien restaurant and report back.
Yeah, no, that maybe that's what I'll do on Halloween. I'll go to the alien restaurant because I think we're going to or I think it's in Fargo or maybe it's in Bismarck. I forget. But it's yeah, there's an alien themed restaurant in Fargo that I've been wanting to check out, and they sell a
Yeah.
barbecue sauce.
Yeah, please report back.
Yeah,
Well, with that nice little segue, do you want to go downstairs to Le Bon Nuit?
yeah.
All right, Joe. So, what are you drinking?
So I think we both took this episode very seriously, as it is it's maybe the best episode of the show that we're covering this week.
It's
Uh,
one of the most important episodes
One
that
of the most
has ever
important
been
episodes.
made.
Yeah,
That's for sure.
it's easily a top 10 episode, I think. So I invented a cocktail for this episode that I call the Dark Betty, and it is
Ooh.
a play. It's kind of I th- my ice cube's kind of melted too much to get the full effect, but uh the what the
Joe,
listeners
the
can't
listeners
see.
can't see your
So
drink. Only I can.
the idea behind the drink is Uh, it's a play on a dark and stormy. So it's an ounce and a half of black rum, uh, a 3/4 of an ounce of ginger liqueur, 1/4 ounce of maple syrup, and a 1/4 ounce of lemon juice. And then I took a slice of lemon and I put it in the bottom of the glass and I put a ice cube on top and then I poured the drink over it because I was like, Dark Betty is just a blonde-haired woman in a black wig.
That's perfect.
In a black bob wig. So that is the drink. That is the Dark Betty. What about you, Meredith? What are you drinking this week?
I too made a themed cocktail for this episode, and mine is called the Sticky Maple.
Ooh.
And basically, it's just a maple old fashioned. So, when you were here last week, you brought me a coveted bottle of Brothers Bond bourbon, which uh, Riverdale is not the only show we watch like this. We're also watching The Vampire Diaries right now, and this sent us both on a mission to find this bourbon earlier this summer. You did find the Brothers Bond bourbon in North Dakota. For me, it's not that easy in Pennsylvania. They don't sell it in PA, they don't sell it in Delaware. So I have to go to New Jersey if I want to buy this, which is insane. But fortunately, you just flew some from North Dakota, which is obviously much easier than paying the $5 bridge toll to go to New Jersey. So thank you for that. And I put it in this cocktail and it's very good. So it's 2 ounces of Brothers Bond bourbon, 1 ounce of maple syrup, 3 dashes of Angostura bitters, and then 1 dash of orange bitters. And just shake it, put it over rocks in a rocks glass, and then garnish with a little orange peel. And I think even though you're putting in the orange peel, having the dash of orange bitters still helps. Because for me, you might not want the orange bitters because I know you really are a maple fan. So maybe you want like a really mapley taste. For me, like I wanted to do a maple drink, but I don't actually like maple, and I feel like having that extra little bit of citrus just kind of like mellows it out a little bit.
You put a lot of an ounce of maple syrup is a lot of maple syrup.
Yeah,
That's a
well,
lot of
I
syrup for a cocktail. So it's probably, I mean, I imagine it's quite sweet, which isn't a bad thing, but I imagine it's with the bourbon. And if any members of the Riverdale cast are listening to this podcast, which I assume they all are, uh, if
of
any
course
of
they
you
are.
want to make, if any of you want to make any kind of liquor at all, we will buy it. You will have at least two customers for life. So
Oh my god. We absolutely. Look, we
yes,
are now addicted to Brothers Bond bourbon after we haven't even finished watching The Vampire Diaries. If there was a
yeah,
Riverdale official drink, sign me up. I don't care how
100%.
disgusting it is. I don't care if it's the weird rum plus maple situation that's coming down the pipeline in like season 5. Sign me up.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. So, what do you think of your cocktail? You like it
I like
that
my
you invented?
cocktail. Yeah, I
Yeah.
like the cocktail that I invented. I'm excited to try your cocktail though, the Dark Betty. That
Yeah,
sounds
I
really good.
forgot to mention there is 2 dashes of Angostura bitters in mine as well, and
Nice.
I feel
And
like
Angostura
that
Bitters is a sponsor of this podcast. No, just kidding.
yeah.
They should be though.
Well, it's one of those it's one of those brand name things where you just if you're if you're talking about a different bitters, it will taste different, I guess. So,
Yeah,
I use
but like
Angostura.
I wonder if there's like a generic version of Angostura Bitters. You know what I mean? Like is Angostura Bitters like Kleenexes to tissues? Like are there other brands that make the same tasting bitters?
I don't think so. I think they all taste a little bit different because I have some other just, like, bitters, and they taste different.
Oh,
Like,
well,
it's
yeah, for
noticeably
sure. Like
different.
a Peugeot's bitters is totally
Yeah, like
different, but like,
Peychaud's, and I have Fee Brothers just bitters, and it tastes like like noticeably different from Angostura. So, yeah, I don't know if there's like a I see what you're saying. You're wondering if there's just like Kirkland brand, not a
yeah,
sponsor,
that's.
bitters that just happens to taste exactly like Angostura bitters.
Can you imagine though if Kirkland Brands was our sponsor? What a like absolute mammoth of a sponsor.
I feel like that's not good synergy with their brand, but, maybe it would be, I don't know. Uh,
We could record this at IKEA. It would be amazing, or not
you know
IKEA, at Costco. It would be amazing.
yeah, Costco's in other states do sell liquor,
Yeah, I know. Do you have Costco in North
so
Dakota? Do they sell liquor there?
we do have Costco in North Dakota, but not where I live in North Dakota. We have Sam's Club,
Okay, so
and they
next
do
time
sell
you're at
liquor at our Sam's Club.
Costco, report back if they have Kirkland brand Angostura bitters.
Mm, okay.
The
But you can't buy
people
just,
need
like,
to
1
know.
bottle. You have to buy, like I bought a bottle of Angostura bitters years ago, and I'm still working through it probably at this point, well over a year ago. Yeah,
Yeah, not
I can't
Kirkland bitters.
imagine
It comes in like a gallon bottle of bitters.
yeah, it's a lifetime supply of bitters.
Yeah, for all of your, it's useful for like school lunches, catering,
Yeah,
large families.
yeah. If you're one of those, like if you're like if you're like a Duggar and you need to make old fashions for all the kids.
I don't think the Duggars drink alcohol.
I don't know, I'm just imagining a world where they're like, "Gather around, children, it's time. Would you like an old fashioned?" That'll be 1, 2, 3, 24 old fashions.
And And the bitters will have like a big pump on it.
They just, like, make it in a trash can.
Like yeah, like, you know how like the big I don't know why I'm laughing so much. Edit all of this out, obviously. But like the big condiments at the ballpark. But that's just like
Yeah. They've just, like yeah, like, it's just a big, like, French's mustard container full of Angostura bitters. Well, Kirkland brand bitters.
Oh my god. Yeah, obviously edit all of that out, but
Yeah, all the gratuitous
that's
laughter.
that's what I think it's like. Yeah. Okay. Okay. So now that we got that out of our system, let's take a break. And when we come back, we'll do the gospel.
Sounds good.
And now it's time for the gospel according to Roberto, chapter 3, Body Double. We open this episode directly at last week's cliffhanger, where Cheryl admits that she's guilty and is escorted out of science class by Sheriff Keller and Principal Weatherby. We do learn that Cheryl is in fact guilty, but not of Jason's murder. Turns out she was being very dramatic in a very Cheryl way, and she's only guilty of lying. Under interrogation, she explains that Jason had actually wanted to leave Riverdale, so he asked for Cheryl's help in staging an accident so he could fake his own death. The story that Cheryl had previously given, that their boat tipped over, was the plan. In reality, the twins made it across to the Greendale side of the Sweetwater River, which is notable because Greendale is where Sabrina lives. And you know, I'm always going to call out a Sabrina thing. So they said goodbye to each other. They did hear the gunshot from afar. And then Jason was supposed to get in touch with Cheryl within a month, but he never did. And Cheryl actually learned that he really was dead when his body was found. So Cheryl's revealing all this in the interrogation, but before she can give any more details or information, we finally meet her parents, Penelope and Clifford Blossom. They storm in, they intervene, they say she's not saying anything else without a lawyer, and that's the end of that. And then we get a very, very early title card, 3 minutes and 5 seconds.
Yeah, this
So
might be
no
the
finish or
earliest
drink.
well, we'll get to that. You'll see.
But not from the
We'll
title card.
we'll get to it in the rules section.
Oh, God. Okay. I might have
So
forgotten
yeah,
one.
this might be the earliest title card in the show. I'm not sure, but I don't remember many quite this early. But yeah, I feel like this is like classic uh CW bait and switch, end on a cliffhanger, and then start the episode and immediately resolve it in maybe the most mundane way possible they could think of.
Oh, yeah. I mean, they ended the last episode with like Cheryl's getting arrested, and then it's literally resolved in less than 3 minutes because she's like, oh, I'm just guilty of lying. Okay, so this is the first episode of many where a lot of the main characters have completely separate storylines from each other. So, especially Archie, he's like always just off doing his own thing and like not interacting with the other characters, which is very much true this week. So, I thought I'd try something a little different this week and kind of break it down by character just to make the story a little more digestible. So, first, we're at the Cooper house. Alice presents Betty with her latest edition of the Riverdale Register. The title story is Cheryl Blossom, Guilty as Sin. And we all know that, like, it's not that deep, but it's like this catchy, splashy headline. So Betty accuses her mom of sensationalizing Jason's murder, which she absolutely is. And we kind of learned from this conversation that Betty and the Blue and Gold have a lot more journalistic integrity than her parents at the Riverdale Register, which makes sense because, as we learned last week, the high school is the center of the universe and the adults are just being silly and having like little hobbies. So makes perfect sense. So all of this kind of sets up Jughead's storyline for the week because Betty knows that Jughead is writing this novel about Jason's murder. So she recruits him to start writing for the Blue and Gold to cover all of that. And they have this cute little like back and forth. He like semi reluctantly agrees to write for the Blue and Gold. And then his first assignment is to look into Dilton Doily and the Scouts and what they were doing at the Sweetwater River on the 4th of July. So he spends the rest of the episode just like relentlessly sleuthing around Dilton Doily and like all the other adventure scouts. And basically, what he uncovers is that Dilton was actually the one who shot the gun. He was doing like a training demonstration with the scouts, but it was, I guess, unauthorized. So he's afraid of getting in trouble. But he was actually the one who fired the gun. And that's Jughead's big uh, discovery.
Storyline, yeah. That is, isn't his what doesn't Dalton Doyle say something like really weird and aggro when he talks about like why he was teaching them how to shoot a gun? He's like, they're gonna so like they're gonna get eaten alive out there. So the world's full of danger. It's like one of those things, right? Isn't that why he says it? Like
Yeah.
he's he's like teaching like hardcore survival training. Apparently, he basically he's starting like a paramilitary.
Yeah, he is the first kid to start a paramilitary in Riverdale, but he won't be the last.
Well, that's not true
So,
because the Southside Serpents exist. So
yeah, but they're not like militarized at this point. They're just like a gang. Also, spoilers. Wow. So, that's pretty much Jughead's entire storyline this episode. Sorted. So, meanwhile, in Archie World, Archie corroborates Cheryl's story by telling Sheriff Keller and Principal Weatherby that he also heard the gunshot on the 4th of July, which helps because, like, the sheriff was very suspicious of, like, thinking Cheryl made up the gunshot. So Archie's like, no, I heard it too. But he does lie about being with Miss Grundy, and he says he was with his dog Vegas instead. But unfortunately for Archie, they do reach out to his dad to like verify the story. And then Archie gets grounded because he had lied to Fred about where he was on the 4th of July. And then Miss Grundy finds out that Archie came clean about hearing the gunshot. And she basically retaliates against him by suspending him from music lessons, which classic Miss Grundy move.
this is the episode that
So,
ends with Fred making a music studio for Archie in the
yes.
garage. Yeah. So that is, I thought, I mean, it's just like Fred Father of the Year, more Fred Father of the Year material, you know,
Oh yeah, we're getting to Fred Father of the Year, but
or getting
yeah,
there. Okay.
he
I
crushes
was,
it.
yeah.
Yeah, that's like the end of Archie's storyline this episode. That's where we're going.
Yeah. Okay. I didn't know
Um,
we had more to go.
oh yeah, unfortunately, yes, we do have more Archie to go. Um, So next for Archie, Cheryl saves the day. This is a very weird scene. She like appears to him in class and she agrees to grant him a wish as a thank you for backing up her story. And she's like, this is what Jason would have wanted. You can have anything but my body. It's very weird. Uh and Archie wishes for Josie and the Pussycats to let him come to their rehearsals so he can learn about music from them. So Cheryl makes it happen. He goes to rehearsals, at which Josie like gently explains white privilege to Archie and is like, this is why maybe you're not the right voice for our music. And then he immediately helps them write a song. So lesson not learned for Archie, I guess. His voice is for everyone.
Yeah.
Uh
I did think that scene with Cheryl granting him a wish was very funny. And Madeline Pesh kills it in that scene because she like when she says it's for he can have everything but her body, she does it in this way where she's like biting her lip, like it's the most horny way of saying it possible, I guess. I don't know, but it's It's it's, like, absolutely insane that she's like, "I'll grant you my wish," and then she's but and while seductively saying, "You can have anything but my body." And then Archie being just, like, the most earnest character existing in an almost entirely different world is like, "Yeah, I want music lessons."
Yeah, it's so typical of both of their characters. And it's like so great.
Yeah, like Madeline Pesh is like dripping with subtext and like weird, like all kinds of energy being thrown out all over the place with reckless abandon. And Archie's just like a walking thumb with abs.
It's like in the D&D world, I feel like Cheryl would be like a character with just like such high charisma, but the problem is Archie's intelligence is so low that it doesn't work on him. Like he just doesn't get it.
I mean, I don't even really know what he's supposed to be picking up on there too, but it's just like you get a wish. He immediately knows what his wish is, what he wants to wish for.
And like I just love how she like phrases it. Like it's not like I'm making up to be funny on this
Yeah,
podcast.
I'll do
Like,
you a
oh, it was like a
solid.
wish. Like,
Yeah.
no, she says, I will grant you a wish.
She acts
Like,
like she's some sort of, like, supernatural, like, god of chaos or something.
yeah, like she's like this sexy genie. It's great.
Yes.
So, um, after Archie gets his wish and helps with the song, he sneaks out a few days later. Remember, he's grounded, but he sneaks out to go to an event in the town called A Taste of Riverdale, which is basically where all of the adults in town come together to eat tapas and like argue with each other and listen to the Pussycats' new song. So literally every single adult character is at this. They play the song, it goes great. Archie goes home. Like that's basically it for Archie. Um, but at this event, like chaos ensues, and it's mostly because of Alice Cooper, who is walking around this event like she is the villain in a Real Housewives style, like shitty reality TV show, and just like picking fights and causing problems for every single other person at this event in a fascinating way. Like Penelope is just having a completely separate conversation with someone else, and she walks up and starts asking for like a comment for the paper on Jason's death, and Penelope straight up punches her in the face. That does not deter her. She keeps going. She corners Hermione, who's like just trying to work this event as a cater waiter, and explains about Veronica being slut shamed at school, which we will get to in Veronica's storyline, which is like the most important storyline in this episode. But she says this great line, which is slut shaming. That's what they call it when sluts get shamed. And yeah, she basically just like terrorizes all of the adults at this event. And I forgot how unhinged Alice is in season one. It's truly wild.
The fact that she owns the newspaper, like, she's her and her husband, but the fact that she owns the town newspaper, she's the town, like, gossip and, like, holier than thou woman, and she owns the newspaper. There's something, like, extra nefarious when you think about it this way, and I think we brought this up in another episode where I did not know for the longest time that they owned the newspaper until rewatching, uh, I didn't realize it this early that they owned the newspaper. So, yeah, the fact that she's, like, running around and, like, antagonizing people and basically, like, trying to get them on the record so that she can publish scandalous things is, like, unhinged.
Yeah, she's like, it's giving Perez Hilton in the early 2000s when he would like actively bully all of the celebrities that he was writing about and like draw those little pictures over their faces like you would draw devil horns on someone in a yearbook. Do you remember that? Like that's what it evokes for me. It's very toxic.
No, I was not really I was, like, vaguely aware of Perez Hilton in the 2000s, but I can't say I know much about him.
Yeah, that might be for the best. I was very aware of Paris Hilton in the early 2000s. So, all that's happening. Also at the Taste of Riverdale event, Fred and Miss Grundy meet for the first time. They have this crazy conversation where, like, if you didn't know what was happening, it would seem like a normal conversation between a parent and like a supportive teacher, which I think is part of what's so nefarious about Miss Grundy. Like Fred is asking like basically, is Archie actually good at music? Does he have a shot at like making it in this industry? Should I be supporting him in this? And Miss Grundy says yes, and she's like very supportive of Archie and very like complimentary of him. Um and then she really like changes Fred's mind actually. That's when he goes home and he soundproofs the garage basically to like show Archie that he supports him in the music thing. And it also seems like Archie's just magically not in trouble anymore. And that's Archie's whole story this episode.
Yeah, Fred does a 180 on the music stuff pretty fast once he realizes that, like, Archie it's what Archie's passionate about, and he's I guess maybe it's not a great look that he only takes it seriously once someone tells him that, like, "Oh, yeah, he could be good at this," but, regardless, he goes from being fairly discouraging about it to being, you know, actively supporting his son in a pretty short period of time.
Yeah. Yeah. So good job, Fred.
Yeah,
Love that
Fred's
guy
great.
once
Fred's
again.
great.
So, okay, now it's time for the actual plot of this episode and what makes this like one of the most important episodes of Riverdale. So, Veronica reveals to the gang that she's going on a date with Chuck, and she's met with a big reaction from the gang. So, Chuck is a football player, he's the coach's son. Kevin describes him as like Riverdale High's equivalent of dating a Kennedy. Betty is a little more sus and tells Veronica that he has a reputation for being a huge player. That doesn't stop her. She goes on the date with Chuck, and it actually, in the moment, seems like it's going really well. They go to Pops, and then they're sitting in Chuck's car afterwards. They have this like conversation where they're just bonding over what it's like to be the new kid at school. They take a cute little selfie together, and then Chuck takes Veronica home. And that's pretty much it. But
Thought they
then,
made out on the date.
oh, I think they do kiss. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But as we will learn, nothing more than kissing occurred on this date. She was driven home after the kiss. So the next day at school, Veronica is greeted by this NPC girl who says, "Hey, Veronica, how's that sticky maple that Chuck gave you last night?" And Veronica correctly asks, "What is a sticky maple?" Which we actually never learn the answer to. And I think you and I have both been wondering since the first time we ever watched this episode, what is a sticky maple? I wouldn't recommend Googling it, but also I still don't really know. And maybe I don't want to know. But Kevin just says it's a Riverdale thing, and that's the explanation that we get. But Betty like does let us know that it is like a sex thing and that she's being slut shamed. And it turns out that Chuck has posted the selfie of him and Veronica online, but he's edited like a big maple syrup splotch over Veronica's face. And this is supposed to indicate that he sticky mapled her.
Yeah, I can't quite figure out if given how important maple syrup is in the town of Riverdale, I can't quite figure out if a sticky maple involves maple syrup or it's merely a euphemism for something using, like, words that, like, lumberjacks in Riverdale would understand as, like as, like, a double entendre.
Yeah, it's really not clear. But then, like, the photoshopped picture of her, like, it's maple syrup that's on it.
But that doesn't
Like,
seem overtly sexual to me to just
No.
maple syrup on someone's face. Like, like it's just seems kind of odd if that's I mean, if that's what you're into, just
I mean, hey,
dumping maple
maybe
syrup on the and I don't know, but,
it's what one of the characters likes to do.
I
That's for
guess.
sure. Was we'll learn later.
Yeah.
But yeah, we never actually learned, and that has driven me crazy for years. But it doesn't matter. Obviously, Veronica is furious because he's lying, and she's out for blood. So she's looking for revenge. Betty kind of like gets roped into helping her, and they storm into the boys' locker room to confront Chuck. But Chuck is like not intimidated by Veronica's brand of just like yelling at the problem until it goes away, which we'll learn throughout the show. Veronica tends to have two strategies for problem solving: it's yelling or event planning. Uh, and usually both tend to work pretty well, but not this time. Chuck is not having it. And it ends with like all the football players like being like, this is bulldog territory, and barking at them until they just like give up and leave. So they know that they're going to need a different approach in their seek for vengeance.
I do love how, like Archie's reaction when they just march into the boys' locker room. He's just like, "You guys aren't supposed to be in here."
And
And they're
this is
just
like,
naked, basically.
honestly, they could have cut Archie's whole storyline from this episode because, like, he really didn't. His only other interaction with the other characters in this is when he's told, like, shut up, Archie, this isn't about you. And then, like, left in the dust with
Pretty
his
much, yeah.
towel.
Yeah, he's just like, "You're not supposed to be in here," and then they're like, "Quiet." And he's like, "Yes, ma'am."
Which is like, for a universe called Archie Comics, this is like such a theme in this show where he just like he doesn't have anything to do with anything. And this is the beginning of a long, long relationship like that.
It does very frequently feel like Archie is in a different show from all the other characters. Like, all the other characters will be, like, involved in what is ostensibly the, like, main plot of the season, and Archie will be, like, usually trying to punch something or someone. It's
Well,
like
yeah, it's like the main characters of this show really are Jughead, Betty, and Veronica, and they're usually doing something to do with the
and
main plot.
Cheryl, later on Cheryl.
Archie, no, because Cheryl too. I mean, she's a main character, but like Archie, she's in a
Oh, yeah,
different show. It's just
sure.
that Archie's show is like Punch, and
The boy who punched good.
the boy who punched good, and Cheryl's show is like she's in like a gothic drama, and maybe that's why their interaction in this episode is so weird because like the two of them are in like separate shows from the main show, but their shows never touch. Like, ne'er shall they meet Punch Boy and Cheryl's gothic drama.
Yeah.
This time they
Uh,
do for a second. It's
they
real
do
weird.
actually, this is the season where Cheryl and Archie will probably interact the most, and it's
Yeah.
kind of always great and weird when it does happen. But
It's like very off putting and delightful.
yeah, at the same time, it's like I don't know. It's like I can't think of a good facsimile, but it's like some movie where you've got like an sort of odd couple coming together to do something that you don't think would get along, but they end up being weirdly cohesive.
Imagine the two of them in like a buddy cop.
Ugh, I would watch the hell out of that show.
Me too. Oh my god. Get Madeline Petch and KJ App on the phone now.
Yeah.
Okay, so back to the plot. So they need a new way to find revenge. So Betty starts asking around, and she finds a bunch of girls, at the school who have also been harassed by Chuck and the goons from the football team. And she gathers these girls together. And in that moment, we meet Ethel Muggs for the first time, who is one of the best characters on this show. So, what happened to Ethel is that Chuck cornered her in the library and later told everybody that like stuff happened between them. And really, she just helped him with like a book. Uh, and Ethel's a total badass. She completely calls out Chuck on what happened and says she's willing to go on the record about the situation for the blue and gold. And she also explains that the boys keep track of all of the girls that they've allegedly slept with in a playbook, and that they like assign points based on a ranking system of like the qualities of all of the girls at the school and like what kind of stuff they did. So she's explaining like this whole situation. And then Cheryl storms in to just kind of like make the situation about her and immediately becomes defensive of Jason and says that he would have never allowed the football team to be doing anything like that. And later, Ethel confirms that the book did exist because she got Trev, who is Val's brother, Val of Josie and the Pussycats. So her brother confessed to the playbook. It turns out he actually quit the football team because he found out about the book. So he's like happy to come forward and explain because he's a total real one. And he's like such a cutie pie, but we never see him again. I'm like, what happened to Trev?
Yeah. The I will say the whole playbook conceit for this episode is, like, great. It's, like, such a good, like, dark side of high school, dark side of, like, bullying thing. It's a very, yeah, I'm sure this is, like, a real thing, with, that's happened at schools or something similar to it where women have been slut shamed, uh, probably fictitiously most of the time by, uh boys trying to impress other boys.
Yeah, this really like resonated as a storyline. And I think because just like in like the first couple episodes, like this is a horrible thing to happen, but also like the first couple of episodes, it's the kind of thing that you could imagine happening in a real high school. So it feels a little more grounded than the show is going to become.
Yeah, and it's also one of those things where it walks this, like, odd fine line where it doesn't like, like, you see Veronica on her, like, smartphone earlier in this episode, so this and they've referenced the fact that it's basically, like, like, 2017 or whatever year this show came out in, basically, um, several times, but, like, so, like, this type of thing would probably be cyberbullying, but because of the whole, like, in a different show, but because of the whole aesthetic of this show, you don't question for 1 second the fact that there would be, like, an actual physical book where they are doing this. Which I think, uh is sort of an interesting magic trick this show frequently pulls off, that you forget about the fact that there's technology that would probably lead to different ways of bullying or high school interactions,
Well, and there's
happening.
like a social media component too, because he
Yeah,
posts the selfie with Veronica. But you're
true.
right, the book feels like the more pressing issue.
Yeah, yeah. And I feel like the show does pull off that weird trick all the time because they're driving around in, like, 50s cars, and you just sort of accept this weird comic booky aesthetic of the show, and you forget that maybe even has, like, a connection to the real world, and you're just like, "Alright, I'm in Riverdale world now." It's got its own set of rules, and you sort of just accept those internal rules.
Yeah, totally. So the girls go after this book. They, in again, like a very stylized way, they meet at school after hours in this very like Nancy Drew kind of moment where they all have flashlights and they're like searching the school to find the book. And Cheryl shows up in what Kevin describes as amazing thigh high boots. And she's really only there because she needs to be vindicated and prove that the book doesn't actually exist so that she can feel okay about Jason. But unfortunately for Cheryl, the book definitely does exist, and Ethel finds it within like 2 seconds of looking because the boys didn't even bother to hide it. And when they open the book, they see Veronica's name, Ethel's name, and we also learn that Jason put Polly's name in the book. So Betty lashes out at Cheryl, and Cheryl kind of like fumbles here and is forced to admit that she was wrong about Jason. That kind of sends her into like a little bit of a tailspin. And Betty just like wants revenge for all of the girls, like certainly for Veronica, but really especially for Polly. And she promises Veronica in that moment that she will go full dark, no stars, and we learn that she is not kidding about this.
Yeah, I think this scene is a great again, I mean, we're gonna gush over Cheryl a lot, but Cheryl is such an interesting character in that she has such like strongly defined internal logic to the character. Like, yes, she's difficult and sort of uh, uh, like often antagonistic to the other characters, but she has this strange like moral backbone to her where she's like, well, Jason could have done this, or now I have to become involved in this whole thing. And then it's also a great scene for Betty, who is sort of now growing, sort of more resolve in each episode to be bolder. And this is a crusade she feels strongly about. And she finding out about this and getting proof is just like all that she needs to act further on this.
Yeah, totally. So Betty is going there. The next night we see this like weird kind of like this really evoked Mrs. Danvers from Rebecca for me, but this like weird scene where Betty is putting on lipstick and her mom's like hovering behind her in the mirror, and she's putting on a lipstick called Seduce Scarlet. And like Alice has this scene where she says like Seduce Scarlet doesn't suit you, like you should be wearing Pink Perfection instead, and she wipes the lipstick off her mouth and like smears it all over her face. And it's very, yeah, it's giving me Mrs. Danvers. It's very like Hitchcock to me. um but Betty is not swayed. She is going for a vibe here. She reapplies her Seduce Scarlet and she marches over to Pop's Chocolate Shop, where she conveniently finds Chuck just like having dinner alone at a booth. Not sure how she knew he was just going to be there like that, but it doesn't matter. She goes over to seduce Chuck, and basically, by saying that she wants to be a bad girl now, Chuck starts like comparing her to Polly, and you kind of see the fire in her eyes. But, she like pushes it down and she's like, no, no, like, I want to go on this date with Chuck and like he can show me how to be a bad girl. And they make plans to meet the next night at Ethel's house, which has like an amazing indoor pool and hot tub, which like I don't know that I've ever seen an indoor pool in a suburban home.
Yeah, they must be really rich. This the scene with Alice and Betty is like, I don't understand what happened to the show down the stretch, event just because there are scenes like this early on that are so interestingly shot and interestingly played. Like, when, like, they shoot it where, like, Alice, like you see Betty's side profile, and then Alice comes down, you see her side profile, and she says, like, "Yeah, like, pink perfection's more your color or something, like, she's like and they both are, like, incredibly stoic during this interaction, like, it's so specific, it's such an interesting way of doing this interaction, and the show will lose this at some point, and when I see scenes like this where they're making such interesting choices on how to shoot it, it makes me a little bit sad that, like, eventually the show is gonna be a little more, humdrum and by the numbers in what it's trying to do, so
Yeah, like, when will that happen? Will we notice it happen? I'm not sure, but it is
yeah, it's
wild to go
gradual,
back and
yeah,
watch these early episodes again because they are
yeah,
so good.
yeah,
Yeah. So, the next night, Chuck shows up at the fancy indoor pool at Ethel's house, and he's surprised to be met at the door by Veronica, who lets him in, and she gives this whole speech about how it's like time for her and Betty to stop fighting over Archie and learn to share. And, there's like dripping with innuendo here. She's leading him towards the jacuzzi, and then in walks Betty in her signature dark Betty black wig, wearing a bra, a mini skirt, and a choker necklace. And of course the seduce scarlet lipstick. And she says, Betty couldn't make it, so she sent me instead. And this is our introduction, officially, to the best and most important character on this show, Dark Betty.
yeah. Love Dark Betty, just, you know, the the fact that one of the characters becomes, like, an evil, dark version of herself in this show is just chef's kiss, it's perfect,
And that
and
we get it only 3 episodes in. Like, I can't
I know
believe that Dark Betty came on this early.
I did not remember that, and I was a little shocked, when I found out, and I've been sitting on this, peek behind the curtain. I'm usually 1 episode ahead, because I need to figure out what rules are gonna come up in the next episode. So I've been sitting on this for a month. I've been thinking about Dark Betty for a month, and I'm like, "It's right around the corner," and, we both of us were traveling a bunch, so we weren't able to record. So, I've just been sitting on this information that Dark Betty shows up in episode 3 of the show. It's insane. It's, like, too much too fast in some ways. I thought it was, like, episode 8 or something.
I know, give us a little more time here to get ready for Dark Betty. No, she, like, immediately turns into Dark Betty, and it's great because even, like, last time in episode 2, we got a big glimpse of Dark Betty when she, like, lashes out at Cheryl at another weird vanity scene,
Yeah.
and, like, even in the pilot, it's like there's all these little, like, glimpses, and, like,
Mhm.
who and how Dark Betty is does evolve over the course of the show. But like this episode, this wig moment with the jacuzzi and the maple syrup, which we're gonna get to, like it this is like the quintessential Dark Betty scene.
Yes. And so I have a question for you now that we're at this point. What do you think of the outfit Dark Betty is wearing, and what do you think of, the outfit Betty wears to get Chuck to go, um, to the to originally convince Chuck to go meet up with Dark Betty and Veronica?
Yeah, so her original outfit, it's more, like, subtle. It's kind of just her regular clothes, but, like, kind of sexy-fied. Like, she's wearing this sleeveless, like, button-down shirt, but she has it, like, tied up kinda high, and she's wearing, like, the seduce scarlet lipstick, and I think she even still has her hair in, like, the ponytail in that scene, but, like, she's just kind of, like, glammed up her usual outfit and then wore, like, the darker lipstick for pops. But there's still, like, because it does normally dress in such a conservative way, it's, like, a marked change from her usual style, even with just like those small changes.
Yeah,
I
I
think. Oh,
and
go ahead.
what do you think of Dark Betty?
Yeah, Dark Betty, it's like really interesting because it's literally just like a black mini skirt, a black bra, the choker, and the wig. The black bra and black skirt, it looks actually really weird to me in this scene because they are at a pool and like Veronica's in a swimsuit, Chuck's in a swimsuit, and then Betty just kind of comes in this outfit which is in no way related to swimwear but is like the same amount of revealing as swimwear. So I don't know, it feels like a very deliberate stylistic choice that I get because it's Dark Betty, but like I don't get in terms of like why would Betty choose to wear that particular outfit and not like a black bathing suit or something.
Well, I think it's a deliberate visual, like, language choice by the show that I think it's purposefully stuff that just seems a little bit slapdash, like, it's like
That's for sure.
Betty's like, "Oh, I gotta be sexy. I don't have a sexy bathing suit that fits this persona, so I'm just gonna, like, wear this bra, wear this mini skirt, you know, wear this wig I got or something," but it's like she didn't have time to put together, like, a whole ensemble, and I think it's actually, like, kind of brilliant, like, subtle language that this is, like, sort of her just sort of flying by the seat of her pants a little bit because she's kind of improvising as she's
I
going.
agree. It does very much feel like an outfit that a teenager would find and be like, this is my like sexy power outfit. Like it's probably stuff that she found in like Polly's closet. The wig totally gives like Halloween costume wig in
Mhm.
the best possible way.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, it definitely feels like something like a high schooler would have access to, not like a lazier show would have like a really specific not well, this is a really specific outfit, but like a really like um overtly sexy and sophisticated maybe outfit to put her in is the way to put it. Like something
yeah, but
more
that's not realistic to like what Betty would have
mhm.
access to.
And I think it sort of like shows this like how abrupt this transformation is and how like the level of like urgency and improvisation in the way Betty's approaching this. Like she's like, we got to do this now.
Yeah. Oh, well, she's like fully acting on impulse alone
hmm
for this whole plot line. And like even the choker necklace she wears is interesting to me too because Cheryl wears a lot of necklaces like that. And I feel like this outfit to me is like I feel like she's pulling elements from other women that she's surrounded by who she finds like sexy or like empowered and like evoke that kind of vibe that she wants to evoke. Like I feel like the choker necklace is kind of like emblematic of Cheryl. The dark hair is kind of like Veronica's dark hair, and I feel like it's these characters that her mom keeps telling her to stay away from, but that she actually wants to be more like that
Yeah,
she's like pulling from.
and that's why I think it works in an interesting way. Like there's a visual language to Dark Betty that tells you like without telling you like what Betty's about right now. And the way she comes out and like acts super confident despite being like in something that's clearly a little, thrown together is I think also sort of displays like the change she's trying to make in herself. And this is part of it's interesting, and I was thinking about this, that the Dark Betty uh and Betty in general. Betty is trying to be more of a bad girl while Veronica's trying to be more of a good girl. In their sort of like paths are intersecting in this
Yeah, they're
interesting
like
way.
meeting in the middle.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, but Veronica is like shocked by Dark Betty because we do get a glimpse when she walks in and says this of like Chuck's face and Veronica's face, and both of them are like equally shocked.
Another great shot that you
Yeah,
I wouldn't see in a later season, where it's like, I think Veronica, like, sitting in the hot tub in the foreground and Chuck standing in the background, and it's, like, more of a close up on Veronica's face, and she just looks, like, confused and, like, in shock about
yeah, like
she's like
jaws dropped,
yeah,
literally.
and Chuck standing behind her, like, also confused and surprised by the whole thing.
Yeah, yeah, it's like very interesting. So after this dramatic entrance, Dark Betty just like proceeds to openly roofie Chuck's drink. And Chuck seems fine with it. Like she's putting this like muscle relaxant in his drink. And she's like, "You're okay with this, right, Chuck?" And he's like, "Yeah." So she just goes for it. Uh and then before we know it, he's handcuffed to the jacuzzi, inside the jacuzzi, like handcuffed to the walls of it, and totally at Dark Betty's mercy. And we also see Ethel like lurk because this is her house. And we just see her like lurking and like peeking through the door every once in a while. Kind of like that Kim Kardashian meme where she's like poking her head behind the bush to like look. And I feel like she is the facsimile of us, the viewer, in this scene, just like watching this all go down and loving every second of it, which justice for Ethel. She's everything to me. So next, Dark Betty has Veronica film as she interrogates Chuck, and she very quickly and easily gets him to confess that he made up the Sticky Maple story and that all he did was like kiss Veronica and then drive her home after their date. And Veronica's satisfied with that. She's ready to stop filming and close up shop. But Dark Betty keeps going. So this kind of turns into like torture-y vibes. Like she steps on his head and like starts pushing him into the water and like nearly drowns him. And then she pours maple syrup all over him and kind of like waterboards him with the maple syrup. And maybe this is what a sticky maple is? We'll
Kinda
never
like
know.
a kinda like a David Carradine situation.
Yeah. Except also she's ruining Ethel's parents' expensive jacuzzi. And
Can
like, I
you
don't know.
maple syrup ruin a jacuzzi?
I can't be look, it can't be good for a jacuzzi. And as someone who I don't want to shock you, but we are closer to the ages of the parents than we are to the kids. And as someone of that age, I'm like, if my kid was pouring maple syrup in the jacuzzi with their dumb little friends, I would be so mad. That
I
can't
think
be
we're
good.
I don't know if that's true, we might be, like, perfectly in the middle.
We'll go with we're perfectly in the
I
middle.
think we're perfectly in the middle. Their parents have gotta be, like, what, like, in their 50s? Probably, like, early 50s?
I don't think they're that old
I don't
because
think they're that old.
most of them had kids like right after high school.
We there's a yeah, I mean, there's an actual answer to this probably, and,
Yeah, but like think about it.
it
If they all had kids when
that
they
would
were
spoil the future.
25
That's kinda young to have
and
kids, though.
but I think that's like I mean certainly Betty's parents, but I think like a lot of them just like married somebody
Archie's
they knew in high
parents
school.
are Archie's parents are both '80s teen heartthrobs. So,
Okay, you're
like,
thinking
in
about the
real
ages
life
of the actors, which is
yeah,
different.
there's also they also basically say as much in a future episode that I don't wanna
We'll get
spoil
there.
too we'll get there
We'll get there.
eventually, but yeah,
Either way,
anyway,
I rescind that comment. We're the kids' age, and I will put maple syrup
like, if
in
they're
my friend's
17,
parents'
they
hot
were
tub.
born in the year 2000. That's all I'm saying. So, if they're, like, 17 and or 16 and in the first season of the
When the
show.
show came out. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and they're referencing stuff from, like, the mid-2010s or whatever for the most part.
I guess that's true.
So,
Well,
like,
you're
their
thinking
parent
okay, you're thinking about when it came out, at
No,
which time we
I'm
were
saying
certainly closer to the kid's
if you
age.
have a kid in your at, like, 30
Yeah.
You're like minimum like 47, and
Yeah,
we're
but
we're in
Joe,
our
we're
early
in our mid
30s.
30s.
We're in our early 30s. We're not in our mid 30s. Hey,
We're in
you're
our
not in your.
early to
Hey,
mid
you're really
30s.
not in your mid 30s. Because I'm older than you, and
You're
I'm
not that
maybe
you're
in
a
my
year
mid
older than
30s.
me.
I've maybe just entered into my mid 30s, maybe just on the edge of mid
Look,
30s.
all I know is that when Gilmore Girls was coming out, I was Rory's age, and now I'm Lorelai's age.
But that's like specifically a show about a woman who had like a kid as like a teenager, right? Isn't that part
Yeah,
of the
yeah,
Gilmore Girls?
she was a teen mom. She had Rory when she was
Okay,
16.
but
She's
that's like a
16,
it's
or
a very
Rory's 16,
typical
she's 32.
example.
I'm just saying
They're
we're
not.
old
It's
enough
not.
that these
They.
could be our kids ruining our hot
I'm
tubs.
just saying Luke Perry and who I don't want to spoil it, but Luke Perry is Archie's dad, and he was on Beverly Hills 90210 in the 80s, right? So like he as a
Yeah.
human being, Fred is not a young man. He is in his, probably in his late 40s or early 50s when this show is getting
Yeah,
filmed.
but like they're all older than the characters. Like the actors are all like in their 20s playing high school students too. Like the
But that's
actors are
but
not
that's
much younger than us.
but that's partially because if you cast a character who's under a certain age, you can't let them work full time. Like that's why that
Yeah,
is
but
a
then you
thing in
have to
TV
cast
shows.
but then you have to cast older parents so that they look like they could really be their parents, or else
Oh,
you're going to
okay.
end up like House of the
Fair point.
Dragon, where you have Allison, the actress who plays her, is younger than us, and she's supposed to have adult children and be like a grandmother. She's like 30.
Mm.
She might not even be 30.
Yeah, that doesn't make sense.
So if you don't cast older parents, you end up like that. And then we feel
Fair
even
point.
older.
Fair point.
Yeah. Okay. Anyway, that was a huge tangent to
Huge tangent. This episode's
Betty
gonna be so
ruined the
long.
hot tub. I know. Sorry, everyone. Uh, but we're almost at the end. We're almost at the end. So basically, Betty goes completely overboard. She's like dunking. Right. We cut back to Betty waterboarding Chuck with maple syrup, and then she starts calling herself Polly, and she's calling him Jason, and she says he needs to apologize for ruining her. He's like openly crying at this point. And finally, Veronica has to yell at Dark Betty that, like, she's done enough and it's time for her to back off. And then she does manage to listen to Veronica, and then that's the end of that. So, interesting night for Dark Betty and Veronica and Chuck. And the next day, we get to school. Betty has already published, like, written, edited, and published on paper her story in the blue and gold exposing Chuck and the other guilty football players. And Veronica's like, wow, that was fast. And Betty's like, yeah, I stayed up all night, but she seems fine. And then Veronica asks, like, so could we talk about last night with, like, the wig and everything? And Betty gets kind of defensive. She kind of like downplays it. Veronica's like, but you were calling yourself Polly. Betty's like, that's not my truth. That's not how I remember it. And it's like not clear if she's just trying to deflect or if she really like does not remember the night in the same way that Veronica does.
Yeah, it's definitely yeah, this is definitely hinting at a something potentially more nefarious. We'll see,
Yeah.
but
I think
it's not clear cut at this point.
it's not going to be the last we see of Dark Betty. That's
And I
for
hope
sure.
not. I certainly hope not.
So the result of all of this is that Chuck and his goons are cut from the team, and Jughead, as the narrator in this moment, kind of suggests that this sets some terrible consequences into motion, which we are yet to see. And then we have this actually kind of sweet moment where Betty and Cheryl burn the book together. And then Cheryl does give Betty like a genuine apology about what Jason did to Polly. And she recognizes that like maybe she needs to confront the fact that Jason hurt people, and that whoever killed Jason hurt him. She feels more motivated to like find Jason's killer, but also she needs to like not put him on this pedestal and realize that like he did bad things too. So it's this very like come to Jesus moment for the two of them, which is nice.
The female characters in the show are so much more complex than the male characters. Now that Archie's dad supports his music, there's like literally no conflict, internal conflict for him as like a character.
Oh, but wait, there's about to be, because our little cliffhanger this episode
Yeah.
is finally we're at the blue and gold offices. Jughead has brought in Dilton Doily for questioning with Betty. And Dilton says that he doesn't want the story to get out that he was the one who fired the gun. So instead, he offers a better piece of information, that he saw Miss Grundy's car by the river's edge on the 4th of July. And Jughead knows that now there's nothing he can do to protect Archie, and that the events that are coming have already been set in motion. So we're going to get some conflict. Maybe not for Archie, because like I don't know, I can't guarantee that Archie has two brain cells that could be in conflict with each other, but Jughead's going to have some conflict about like journalistic integrity / being loyal to my friend / what my friend is doing is bad for him. It's all going to come to a head. So there'll be some boy drama next.
Yes. And yeah, that's another good cliffhanger to end an
Yeah.
episode on. With that, let's take a break, and after that, we'll open our Rue hymnals to hymn number 3. All right. Would the congregation please open their rural hymnals to hymn number 3, Body Double? For this week's refrain, the rules that were invoked this episode, we have rule number 2: if there's a gratuitous, melodramatic Blossom family scene. I had 3 such instances in this episode. One, when we find out that the plan that was for Jason to leave town when they went to the Sweetwater River.
Yeah.
2, like a minute and a half later, when Clifford and Penelope burst into the office to extract Cheryl from her confession.
Yep.
And finally, when Penelope Blossom slaps Alice Cooper at the end, near the end of the episode at the event. I thought
Yeah.
I know we typically do this as drama between the Blossom family, but I felt like Penelope slapping Alice counts as it was Blossom drama. It was a Blossom drama related slap.
No, I think that totally counts. Yeah, we
Yeah.
got some really good. The Blossoms really shined in this episode in a way that they will in episodes to come, but like we didn't quite get there in the first two. So that was
Yeah.
a fun one this time.
Next, a rule that was I don't think we ever invoked the first run through, maybe one time. Rule 93. The title card appears less than 5 minutes into the
Damn it!
episode. And
I completely forgot about that rule.
that is a what we described as a double finish your drink.
What?
That's what it said. Maybe it should just be a finish your drink, although I don't think it's gonna happen much more, as the title
Why would
cards
we do
typically are at
that?
least 5 minutes in, but I have no idea, and it is the one of the last rules we created, so it was I think it was mostly created just because we were trying to pad the rule list near the end,
Well,
and
yeah.
we were just
I
trying to come up with things.
I can't remember if we've mentioned this before, but like the last 10 or so rules, it was like, so we were making these rules as we were watching the show, and then we were watching the final season as it was coming out live. Like the first all the seasons up until then we had watched like when they were already out, and then the final season was we were watching like weekly when it came out, and we were kind of stressed about like we really wanted to hit exactly 100 rules, and
Yeah, by the time we
we
started
ended up
season
putting in weird
7,
ones.
yeah, by the time we started season 7, it was like really we were like we could probably hit 100. And so but the show
It
is
got
a little
weird.
yeah, the show is a little formulaic, so it was hard to come up with new ones near the end. We had writer's block.
And then I think we forgot like what the early seasons were like. So I'm afraid now that that one is going to come up a lot and that we
I'm very afraid.
forgot. Yeah,
Yeah, now
I'm
I
scared.
wish yeah, I no, I think the other one being 10 instead of 15 makes total sense because 15 like basically never it might happen like a handful of times, but this I truly have no idea because we might have made this rule like with only like 10 episodes left, maybe fewer. The next rule that was invoked is Kevin Sploosh, which I just said was Kevin in the lounge gossiping with Veronica and Betty. Um, Next is uh, Rule 14. A character makes a pop culture reference that makes you say, "What the fuck?" Um, I had at 5:30, also in the lounge, I think Kevin mentions re-binging Making a Murder, which is a very mid 2010s reference.
Yeah, and he references watching it on Netflix as well, specifically, which is
Yeah,
weird because we're watching it on Netflix.
that is weird. Um,
I hate when
Next,
that happens. It's like I don't know why, it really gives me the ick when you're like watching something on Netflix and then they like reference like either the platform Netflix or another Netflix show. It's like so self-referential and like
yeah, if you're gonna do it, you have to do it in like a sort of funny way. I feel like you can't do it in like a totally earnest way.
yeah, and like I guess to be fair, when this was coming out, it wasn't on Netflix, it was on the CW, but like
Yeah,
it was just weird.
that is weird. I think, and also Netflix had, I feel like Netflix had more cachet back then. Whereas now I
Yeah.
feel like Netflix is viewed as like kind of low rent in some ways and not special. But I feel like in like 2016, Netflix was still viewed as being great and like
Oh yeah.
a high quality service. Next, we have at 17:10, uh, I forget I think it's Cheryl calls someone Frida Shallow, or maybe it's Veronica calls Cheryl Frida
I
Shallow, which I thought
completely missed that.
I missed it. I only got it on my second watch through. Yeah, and then uh the near the end they refer to Chuck as too fast, too furious. And the subtitles say the number two fast, the number two furious. So it is very much referencing the movie Too Fast, Too Furious. Uh, Next is Rule 20. Every time Betty calls someone an unnecessary nickname, i.e., Arch and Jug, and Betty calls Jughead Juggy 6:15 when trying to get him to write for the blue and gold. Um, Next is Rule 40. Anytime someone insinuates Riverdale is an idyllic place to live, and Betty says how Riverdale has changed and how nothing as bad as Jason's murder is supposed to happen here. Which we will later find out is not true, and only terrible things happen in Riverdale.
Yeah,
Uh,
again, like not to tie it too much back to the other Archie universe properties, but to just to illustrate how like much that is not true about Riverdale, in Sabrina, like they live in a town full of satanic witches where all kinds of horrors happen every day. Sabrina herself is too afraid to go to Riverdale because it's the murder capital of the world.
yeah. slightly spoilery, but that is sort of the turn this show is gonna take.
Yeah, but
Mur
nothing
mur
bad ever happens in
Nothing
Riverdale. It's a
bad,
perfect
and,
place.
we will also find out that historically a lot of murders happened in Riverdale too.
Past, present, and future.
Yeah,
Yeah.
next is Rule 34, Archie acknowledges football or music. There were 4 such instances in this episode. 7 at 7:30, Archie is writing songs down by the Sweetwater River for his music. Then at 9:55, Archie, his music lessons get suspended by Grundy, and then at 14:10, Archie uses his Cheryl wish to get help from Josie to learn more about music, and then at 27 minutes, Archie gets caught after sneaking out and explains he was just writing songs.
That tracks.
Yeah. So, and then next, I believe this is a new rule this episode. Rule 29. Maple is associated with something sexual. This is maybe the most this rule will ever get invoked in an episode, though will come up again. We had Sticky Maple is a Riverdale thing at 10:05. We had the Sticky Maple photo at 11:35. We had Chuck admitting that he did not give Veronica a sticky maple at 35 minutes. And then finally, we have at 35:30, Dark Betty giving Chuck a sticky maple or whatever the hell she was doing when she poured um, uh, maple syrup on him. Oh, and this does remind me, when you were talking about Dark Betty holding Chuck underwater earlier, I did use Kraken black rum in my cocktail because much like the mythical beast that pulled boats into the ocean, Dark Betty also likes drowning people.
Perfect choice.
Perfect choice,
Amazing.
yeah. Do you have any thoughts on Maple being associated with something sexual in this episode?
I mean, I guess now we know that. Wait, did we really create 29 rules in the first 3 episodes? That
I
can't
think
be.
I think we created
We
this
made this
later
later?
having known about sticky if you look through the list, there's a couple rules before 29 that I think are definitely, like, season 2 or season 3, like,
Wow.
clearly from season 2
So
or season 3.
we were just still thinking about sticky
We
maples, or
ye
maybe it happens again and
it
I've forgotten.
I think it comes up again, in some way. I don't remember exactly what. I think s and I also think sticky maple will randomly get mentioned down the road.
Yeah. But
Not
yeah.
just in, like, passing, yeah. Like, as, like, a joke. Next, we have good old rule number 1, Archie shirtless. When he's in the locker room and being told to quiet quiet down, and that the matters Veronica and Betty have come to address in the boys' locker room don't concern him.
Yeah, be quiet, Archie. It's time for the grown-ups to have their plot.
Yep. Next, we have Rule 95, black characters outnumber white characters in a scene. Both are Josie and the Pussycat scenes with Archie where they're writing songs together. Um,
Yes.
and, we learn about white privilege in this episode. And another, this every once in a while, the show tries to tackle something on a social justice slant, and it does like a sort of, I always feel like sort of a so-so or a slapdash job at it.
Well, yeah, I think that like Josie does a really nice job of like gently explaining the situation to Archie, and like the scene is really lovely between the two of them. But then they just go and completely undo it like a scene later because they're like, "Oh, okay, actually Archie's pretty good at writing songs." Sure.
Yeah.
And then he like writes a whole song for them.
Yeah, like, it's more important that we know that Richie is a special boy than than what Josie and the Pussycats, were saying for that to ring true.
Right.
So, he's just innately more talented than anyone else at writing songs, apparently.
Yeah, can't be
Um,
helped.
although I do find the scene where he sneaks in to watch them perform very endearing.
Yeah, it's sweet. And Jughead's up there in the rafters too because he's like spying on everybody and they just like cross paths up there.
Yeah. Next we have Rule 18, dramatic cape moment. This is one where I dropped the ball in previous episodes because there were earlier dramatic cape moments. But, I will emphasize there are 106 rules, and every time I do this, I read all the rules before watching the episode and then just try to, like, clock them as I'm going, so, uh, some are gonna get missed, here and there. So, uh, the the first one is at 2021, the B&E with B and V, which I thought was funny. I forget, I think it's Cheryl or Veronica who says that, but I think it's
Yeah,
Cheryl.
that's a great line that I overlooked. The B&E with B&V.
And then when I have it written down, uh, at 28 minutes, when Chuck shows up at Ethel's house and Veronica opens the door and beckons him to his doom.
Yes, that's right, because she's wearing, like, a cape over her bathing suit.
Yeah, and then she, like, takes
I
it off to,
actually
like, reveal her being in a bathing suit, which you see from the beginning, but
I actually loved Veronica's, bathing suit cape outfit. She has this, like, long necklace situation too.
she looks good.
It's a great fit.
Yeah. And next, one of our most important rules, Rule 3, appearance from Dark Betty TM. Hell's at 28:35, Hellspawn Dark Betty emerges, and that is a finisher.
Yes. That is an earned finisher drink.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
We also have several other Dark Betty rules, I think. We have Rule 57, Betty's Dark comes out, which is just a drink, but I just assumed that Dark Betty showing up was also Betty's Dark coming out. I guess maybe we could classify that as also when she's like, "Do you wanna go full dark, no stars?" That could also be
Yeah,
her dark coming out.
I feel like Betty's Dark coming out, like, maybe we should have invoked this one last episode, because how
Yeah,
I would interpret that is, like, the little glimpses that you get.
yeah, of Dark
Like,
Betty. So
when she's not in the wig, because that's Dark Betty TM, but,
yeah,
like, when
all Dark Betty occurrences are also Betty's Dark coming out, but not all Betty's Dark coming out are Dark Betty occurrences.
exactly,
Yeah,
exactly. But,
yeah.
yeah, an official Dark Betty trademarked occurrence, that feels like an earned finisher drink.
Um, yeah, I agree. Next, we have Rule 7, an adult finds Archie attractive at 32:30. Uh, I have this as what made Grundy take such a special interest in Archie, which is my only note, and I think that must be at that party, I think it's Alice
Yeah,
Cooper in
no,
car no.
it's when she's talking to Fred.
Oh, okay.
And he says, like, "What made you take such an interest in my
Mm,
son?" And then she's like, "He's a special boy," which is very creepy and weird.
yeah, that scene is unsettling. All the Fred and Grundy scenes are very weird. Next is, Rule 85. Someone drinks a milkshake flavor that does not match their hair color, and this is at, uh, 32:45, shortly after that Grundy scene, and it's Alice Cooper at that event. She gets, like, a little shot of milkshake, and it's chocolate milkshake, and she is blonde, and she drinks a milkshake that is not her color.
Oh my god, did I not say earlier that she's the villain of that episode? Like, of course she's gonna, like, drink the wrong color milkshake just to be controversial.
It's
She's trying
true.
to start shit with people.
I will say I do like how at that event they had, like, upscale Pops food, like, they had milkshakes and little, like, shooters for
Yeah,
the
they had
guests.
little, like, sliders of the burgers
Yeah.
too.
It's like if
Yeah.
Pops food was a canapé.
Yeah, well, and the event is called A Taste of Riverdale, and, like, as far as we know, Pops is the only restaurant in Riverdale, so it's
Pretty
like
much, yeah.
it's just taster-sized things of the food at Pops, which
There
is
might
great.
be, like, one fancy restaurant they occasionally go to, but I may be misremembering.
I mean, I'm sure the Five Seasons has, like, a hotel bar or
You're
something.
right, the 5 seasons, I forgot about that. Next is, every time Joe gets offended that Blossom maple syrup is located in New York,
Oh, here we
and
go.
I honestly forgot I wrote this rule down, and while we were talking about the episode earlier, I was thinking about this, and I was like, "Oh, I hope I clocked this." because it stuck out to me so specifically. Betty is not using real maple syrup to give Chuck a sticky maple. That is 100% pancake syrup, which is just high fructose corn syrup that's been colored with caramel food coloring or whatever and some flavoring. So, yeah, the Dark Betty, especially dark because she doesn't can't even use real maple syrup, and apparently that's hard to find in Riverdale, a town in upstate New York. Uh, next, and the final rule invoked, Rule 66, Blossom Arson, when Cheryl burns the playbook at the end of the episode.
Wait, is the rule that we're highlighting this week Blossom Arson?
No, so the rule we're highlighting this week's verse is Rule 3, appearance from Dark Betty.
It's
And I
gotta
think
be.
like, this is where she shows up. We will get we love Dark Betty, she will show up again, but you never feel like you have enough of Dark Betty, in my opinion. So, I feel like we gotta do it now. I've got other episodes in mind from other rules, for some other rules that I'm sort of eyeing, but, specifically the maple syrup rule, I know there's one down the road that that I'm gonna wanna hit. But But, this episode, I think we gotta do Dark Betty because this is the Dark Betty episode, I think.
Yeah, I think so too. It's so this is one of my favorite rules that we made just because it's like so delightful every time Dark Betty comes out, especially like the full TM like wig and everything Dark Betty. And yeah, like we were saying earlier, it feels like some of these rules, it's like we just made it a finish your drink because either we thought it wouldn't come up that often or we were just being like silly in that moment or whatever. And like a true appearance from Dark Betty, it feels really like earned.
Yeah,
And it's so exciting when she shows up in her Dark Betty regalia.
yeah, and it happens infrequently enough that, like, it's always a special little treat when it does
Yeah.
happen.
Well, and like again, I don't want to spoil too much, but in later seasons, so Lily Reinhart basically said that she didn't want to do Dark Betty anymore after a certain point because she felt
Yeah,
like
I don't think this is spoiling because there's no organic way of bringing this up because it's just the
yeah, there's
absence
really
of
not.
Dark
Just like
Betty at some
there
point,
will
yeah.
be a point where there's no more Dark Betty scenes, and it's very sad for fans of Dark Betty, but like I can understand from the actor's perspective. Like I think she felt like it was distracting from the other work she was doing as Betty, and like it just wasn't something she was comfortable doing anymore. So she was like, "Please stop writing Dark Betty scenes," and they did. And like obviously, I think that like the actor's consent and like integrity in the performance is like the most important thing, and I think that that was correct. But also we loved Dark Betty.
Yeah, I miss Dark Betty. We
Yeah,
didn't get
so
enough of
it's
her, I think, ultimately.
yeah, so it's really fun in these early seasons like when she comes up and you do kind of get like it's not that Betty's not dark anymore in the later seasons, it's just that she doesn't wear the wig and the outfit anymore.
Yeah, you still get, like, I guess that's why we made like, that companion role, and we'll go into, I guess, probably more detail on that down the road. But yeah, the you get more you always get the, like, little, like, Betty going, like, "You wanna go full dark, no stars," like, kinda, like, getting, like, like, weirdly intense all of a sudden. That never goes away, but, unfortunately, Dark Betty does, and we miss her. But
Yeah, I think we should get full dark no stars matching tattoos.
what do you think that would look like? Just the words?
um Yeah, just the words probably because you couldn't be stars because it's no stars,
Would it be like
you
one
know?
of us gets, uh,
One of us gets full dark and the other gets no
no
stars.
stars?
Well, no
Well,
stars couldn't be me because I have tattoos of stars already.
okay. But the word stars are not stars. what's the full quote? It's like, "You want vengeance? You wanna go full dark, no stars?" So one of us could get "You want vengeance," and the other one could get "You wanna go full dark, no stars."
Yes. I
And
mean, I am always thinking about what are we going to get as a matching Riverdale tattoo. I feel like it's a strong contender. I feel like
strong
there's something
contender.
here
We'll think
with the
about
Dark
it.
Betty.
Yeah.
Yeah, but uh yeah, I want to know what your favorite thing is about Dark Betty. I think my favorite thing about Dark Betty, or one of them, is um she's all about vengeance but also friendship.
Yeah. She's looking out for her friends, but she's doing it in a way that's, like, kind of indiscriminately violent, and she's just roofing people and threatening to drown them and maybe going a little bit too far. So,
She
that's
went
what I
way too
love.
far, but I
It's, like,
like that.
such an escalation in this show of violence that we like, there's been a murder, but, like, you haven't really seen other characters behave in a way that was particularly violent. If in any way, like, the things that other characters are doing, like, are a little bit, like, unremarkable, and this is, like, the first escalation in violence, I feel like, in the show.
Yeah, I mean, this is certainly the first like violent scene that we have seen like
That's, like, a little
happen.
bit upsetting. Yeah.
Yeah, it's deeply upsetting. But
Yeah.
I like her like devil may care attitude. Like I like when she's roofing Chuck and she's like, "You're okay with being roofied, right?" And he's like, "Okay."
But he
And she
already see
only asked because Veronica's like, is this okay?" She's like, "Yeah, it's fine."
doesn't she say it's, like, truth serum or something? It's, like, muscle relaxant.
Yeah. And then the next day when Veronica's like, "What about all the wig stuff?" And Betty's like, "It didn't seem that deep to me." Like,
It's also like, how did she get the muscle relaxants? Why does she know this will work? Like, there's so many questions that never
right,
get answered about that.
the behind the scenes, like there's no
Yeah,
peek behind the curtain of like the making of Dark Betty. We don't get to
yeah,
see her pick out the outfit. We don't get to see her procure
yeah.
muscle relaxants. None of that.
She's just birthed fully formed into the world, and we don't know anything else about her.
I mean, it makes sense if you think about it because Betty, like plain Betty, is a very organized person. And I think that, it makes sense that would carry over into Dark Betty. She's got her shit together.
Yeah. So it is now that time of the week, Meredith, where we answer the question, is this episode Riverdale or Liver Fail?
Liver fail, obviously. I mean,
Yes.
there's three if you actually do, and like I don't even know what it means to do a double finish your drink. We've actually never we wrote that rule, but we've never actually done that. Like we've never
No.
followed it. I don't even know what that would mean to follow that rule. I'm guessing it means three entire drinks for like those two, plus the finish your drink for Dark Betty, plus all the other crap that happened in this episode. This is liver fail.
And by my count, there are, I think, like 26 or 27 other drinks in this episode that are not finisher drinks. So you are conservatively, if you follow the rules to the letter of the law, which you should not, please do not follow the rules to the letter of the law. Drink responsibly, people. It, you're easily consuming 4 beers
Oh my
during
god.
this episode.
In
Eat
40
conservative.
minutes?
4 to 5, yeah, in 40 minutes. So that's a beer every 10 minutes. And it's a pretty steady clip too. I mean, you get a double finish 3 minutes in, so it's rough. But then
You're
there's
starting
a lo
off bad.
yeah, but there's at least, like, 1 drink, like, every minute pretty much or so. And there's a couple instances where you get, like, a couple stacking on top of each other. It's a rough episode. It's the liver failiest episode we've, encountered so far.
Did you think that when we started this podcast we would spend so much time telling people to actually just not do this full game? Because I
No.
think when we started, I was like, oh, haha, like drink responsibly, wink. And now, like, if you're listening, please don't do that double finish your drink. Like, don't do it.
Yeah, I don't know why we put that one in. That one seems ill-advised. We might need to
We
revise
didn't
that.
even do it.
Yeah, there's no way. The max we did it once on a slow episode, like max, like that, because it's one of the last rules. I mean, and at this point in the show, we really only had 3 rules too, right? We only had because Dark
Right.
Betty is rule number 3. So presumably we made it after watching this episode, and then
Yeah.
and then we have Archie shirtless, and we have Blossom family drama. That's it when we watch this episode. So now, in retrospect, man, there are a lot of rules that are getting invoked in this episode.
My God, it's really rough to go back and listen with all 100 rules. Because,
It is.
like, yeah, we only had this many rules at the very end when the show was basically a completely different show.
Yeah,
Yay!
we did it.
We did it. All right. So, with that, thank you so much for tuning into Riverdale, the Drinking Game, the podcast. For next time, please add more rules to your rule hymnal. We've got Rule 61 1, Jughead's dad sploosh, and Rule 36, Betty picks a lock with a bobby pin. And until next time, if you want to ride the chuck wagon, that can be arranged.
Goodbye.
Yay!